Hi, Hauntline Studios. My name is Daniel. I'm 29 years old, and I live in a small town in Ohio. I never thought I would be the type of person to call a show like this. I've listened to your stories before, usually late at night when I can't sleep, but I always assumed those things happened to other people, not to someone like me. I don't believe in ghosts, or demons, or anything supernatural. At least, I didn't. But something has been happening in my house this past week that I can't explain. And the worst part is, I think my grandmother knew about it long before I did. My grandmother's name was Eleanor. She raised me. My parents divorced when I was 8 years old, and after that they both moved away for work. So my grandmother took me in. Her house became my home. It was an old 2-story house that had been in our family for decades. Growing up there always felt warm and safe. My grandma was the kind of person who made everything feel calm. There was always food cooking in the kitchen. The living room lamp was always on. And every night before bed, she would walk through the house checking every door and window. Twice. But my grandmother also had rules, very specific rules, rules she never explained. For example, she never allowed anyone to whistle in the house after midnight. She insisted that the curtains had to be closed before the sun went down, and every evening just before dark, she locked the basement door. Not just closed it, locked it. When I was younger, I asked her why she had so many strange rules. She would usually smile and say something simple. Old houses have old habits. But there was one rule she repeated more than any other, a rule she told me again and again while I was growing up. Never answer the basement door if someone knocks from the other side. When I first heard that as a kid, I thought she was joking because our basement only had one door, the door at the top of the stairs in the kitchen. There was no outside entrance, no back door, nothing. Just a staircase that led down into a concrete basement filled with storage boxes and old furniture. So when she said that, it made absolutely no sense. I remember asking her once when I was about 12 years old. She stopped washing dishes and turned to look at me. The look on her face was serious, much more serious than I had ever seen before. Then she said something I never forgot. If you ever hear someone knocking on the basement door from below, do not answer it. No matter who it sounds like, just promise me you will never open it. I promised. But honestly, I thought it was just another one of her strange superstitions. My grandmother passed away about 3 months ago. She was 86. She died peacefully in the hospital. I was there when it happened. Right before she passed, she grabbed my hand and pulled me closer. She said something that confused me. She said, "Remember what I told you about the basement door. If you ever hear me knocking, do not answer it." At the time, I assumed the medication had confused her. She had been drifting in and out of sleep for hours, so I just told her everything would be okay. After she passed away, the house was left to me. About a month later, I moved in, partly because I could not afford my apartment anymore, but mostly because it felt wrong to let the house sit empty. Living there again brought back a lot of memories. My childhood bedroom was still the same. The kitchen still smelled like the same wooden cabinets and old coffee. And for the first couple of months, everything felt normal. Old houses make noises. Floors creak. Pipes knock inside the walls. Nothing unusual. Until about a week ago. The first time I heard it, it was around 1:30 in the morning. I was lying in bed watching videos on my phone. The house was completely quiet. Then I heard 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from downstairs. At first, I assumed something had fallen in the basement, maybe a box shifting, so I ignored it. But the next night, it happened again, same time, around 1:30. 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. This time, I sat up and listened carefully. The sound was definitely coming from the kitchen, from the basement door. It sounded exactly like someone knocking on it. From the other side. And immediately, I remembered my grandmother's rule. Never answer the basement door if someone knocks from the other side. I tried to tell myself it was just the house settling, but something about it made me uncomfortable. So instead of checking the noise, I locked my bedroom door and went to sleep. The third night, it happened again. But this time the knocks were louder, much louder. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the house, and for the first time I felt genuinely afraid, because it sounded like someone was actually standing down there, knocking on the door, trying to get out. I almost went downstairs to check, but then I remembered my grandmother's words, never answer the basement door. So I stayed in bed, frozen. Then the voice changed. It became deeper, stranger. Daniel, you know it's me. You have to open the door. Then the scratching started, long dragging scratches like fingernails scraping across wood. The sound slowly moved across the basement door, back and forth, like something testing the surface. I reached over and turned on the lamp beside my bed. The knocking stopped immediately. The scratching stopped too. The house became completely silent. I stayed awake the rest of the night, too afraid to move, too afraid to even step out of my room. When morning finally came, sunlight filled the hallway. That was the only thing that gave me enough courage to go downstairs. The kitchen looked exactly the same as it always did. Quiet, still, normal. But the basement door looked different. The wood was covered in scratches, deep claw marks, like something had tried to tear its way through the door. And on the floor in front of it, there were 3 long gray hairs. My grandmother had long gray hair, but that was impossible. She had been buried weeks ago. Then I noticed something else, a small piece of paper taped to the basement door. Old paper, yellowed with age, in my grandmother's handwriting. It said, "Do not open this door, no matter who is knocking, because if you do, it will come upstairs." I stood there staring at the note for a long time, trying to understand what I was reading, trying to convince myself this was some kind of misunderstanding. Then I heard it again. 3 slow knocks from the other side of the basement door. Knock, knock, knock. And this time, the voice didn't sound like my grandmother anymore. It sounded like something trying to imitate her. "Daniel, you promised." The voice sounded almost calm when it said that. Not desperate, not angry, just patient, like it already knew how this was going to end. I stood there in the kitchen staring at the basement door. My hands were shaking because the voice had said something very specific. You promised. And the only promise I had ever made about that door was the one I gave my grandmother when I was a kid, the promise never to open it, which meant whatever was on the other side had heard that promise. Maybe it had heard everything, every conversation, every warning, every time my grandmother talked about the basement. The knocking came again. Knock, knock, knock. I stepped back slowly. The chairs around the kitchen table scraped against the floor as I moved. For a moment, I considered calling the police, but what would I even say? That something was knocking from inside my basement? That I heard my dead grandmother's voice? They would probably think I was losing my mind. Then the voice spoke again, but this time, it sounded different. Not like my grandmother, not like anyone I knew. Daniel. The way it said my name felt wrong, like someone repeating a word they had just learned. The knocking started again, faster now. Knock, 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 knock. The basement door vibrated slightly with each hit. I backed away further into the kitchen. Then the voice changed again. This time, it sounded like my mother. Daniel, open the door. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard my mother's voice in years. She moved away when I was a kid, but the voice coming from the basement sounded exactly like her. Daniel, please, I need help. My heart started racing again. For a moment, my mind tried to convince me it could somehow be real. But then, I remembered something my grandmother had said many years ago, something she told me after my grandfather disappeared. She once told me, some things can copy voices, but they can't copy the people behind them. And suddenly, the voice downstairs made sense. It wasn't my grandmother. It wasn't my mother. It wasn't anyone I knew. It was something trying to sound like them. The knocking stopped. Then I heard a slow, dragging sound, like something heavy moving across the basement floor. The sound moved closer to the door. Then the scratching started again. Long, slow, scraping sounds, like claws pulling across the wood. I grabbed one of the kitchen chairs and shoved it against the basement door. Then I grabbed another and another. Within a minute, I had 4 chairs wedged under the handle. The door probably weighed 50 pounds, but whatever was down there had already left claw marks in the wood. I didn't want to find out how strong it really was. The house went quiet again. Too quiet. Then the voice came back. Daniel. But this time, it sounded like my own voice, perfectly identical. Daniel, open the door. I felt something cold crawl down my spine. Hearing your own voice from somewhere you aren't standing is one of the most disturbing things you can experience. It sounded exactly like me. Same tone, same rhythm, same way I pronounce my own name. Daniel, you know you want to open the door. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen. Then I turned and walked away from the basement. I grabbed my car keys from the counter. I didn't pack anything. I didn't even lock the front door. I just walked outside and got into my car. The moment the engine started, I drove away. I didn't stop driving until I reached the edge of town. There's a small gas station near the highway that stays open all night. I parked there and sat in my car for almost an hour, trying to think, trying to understand what was happening. Eventually, I realized there was only one place I could go for answers. Back to the house, but not to the basement, to my grandmother's old study. My grandmother kept almost everything: old letters, old documents, old notebooks. If there was anything about that basement, it had to be somewhere in that room. When I returned to the house, the sun had started to rise. The sky was pale blue, birds were beginning to chirp, and the house looked completely normal again. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt it. That same heavy silence. The basement door was exactly where I left it. The chairs still pressed against it. No movement, no sound. But the scratches were still there, deep marks carved into the wood. I walked past the door quickly and went into the living room. My grandmother's desk was still against the wall where it had always been. The top drawer was locked, but I still had the key. Inside the drawer were stacks of old papers, letters, bills, photographs, and one small notebook. The notebook was old. The leather cover was cracked. The pages inside were yellowed. When I opened it, I realized immediately what it was. It was my grandmother's journal. Most of the entries were ordinary. Notes about groceries, weather, neighbors. But then I found an entry that made my hands start shaking. The date was 30 years ago, and it said, "He heard the knocking again tonight. 3 knocks, always 3. Harold wanted to open the door. I begged him not to. He said it sounded like a child crying." I kept reading. The next entry was written 2 days later. "Harold opened the door tonight. I heard the basement stairs creak. Then the door closed. He never came back up." My chest tightened. Harold was my grandfather. He didn't die from illness. He disappeared, and the last place anyone heard him was the basement. I turned the page. Another entry. Weeks later. "It is learning our voices. Tonight it sounded like Harold. It called my name. But I know it is not him. It never says things the way he would. That is how I know the difference." I kept reading, page after page. The journal described years of the same thing. Knocking, voices, imitations, always trying to convince someone to open the basement door. Then I reached the final entry, the one written shortly before my grandmother died. It says, "Daniel lives here now. I pray he never hears the knocking. If he does, I hope he remembers the promise he made." I closed the journal slowly, and at that exact moment, I heard it again. 3 knocks from the basement door. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the kitchen. Then the voice came again, but this time it sounded exactly like my grandmother. "Daniel, you read the journal. Now you understand." My heart started pounding because the voice sounded perfect, exactly like her. "Daniel, you can help me. You can let me out." For a moment, I almost believed it. Then the voice said something that made everything clear. "Daniel, open the basement door." My grandmother would never say that, never, which meant whatever was downstairs was still trying, still learning, still copying, and it would keep trying forever until someone finally believed it. That's when I realized something terrifying. My grandmother didn't lock that basement door every night to keep something inside. She locked it because the knocking never stopped, and eventually, someone always listens. That's why I'm calling Hauntline Studios tonight, because the knocking hasn't stopped, not even after I left the house. Every night around 1:30, my phone rings, and when I answer it, there's only silence. Then 3 slow tapping sounds on the line. Tap, 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 and a voice that sounds exactly like mine, whispering one sentence. "Daniel, you left the door unlocked." So now I want to ask you something. If you heard someone knocking from the other side of a door that should never have anyone behind it, would you open it? Or would you walk away and never come back? Because the truth is, some doors are not meant to keep things out. They are meant to keep something in. And if that door ever opens, it may never stop knocking.
If you love the slow burn of fear, the stories that creep under your skin, subscribe now. Don't fight the darkness. Let it follow you.